Big news, everyone! On the 1st of July, the Duolingo English test is making some big changes. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly what those changes are. So let's get started. Hello, I'm Francis from Last Minute English, and here on this channel we help you get the best score possible when you take the Duolingo English test. And one of the important things when you're taking the DET is to know exactly which questions are going to come out. What do you need to be prepared for? And there's big news. There have been two big changes to the DET's structure. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. So the first of those big changes is that DET is adding two new question types. All right. The first one is, I think, the biggest change of all, and that is that they're adding something called interactive speaking. So in interactive speaking, this new question, it's a big new question. You have between 6 and 8 questions. You'll hear the audio from the AI, and you'll only hear that once, so you have to really pay attention, and then you have to speak to answer that question. So it's like a conversation between you and the AI. So the AI asks you a question, you answer, the AI asks you another question, you answer, and so on and so on. And for each answer, you have up to 35 seconds to speak. And this is, a very big change, and I think it's quite a good change because it's a little bit more like real life. It's not exactly as scary and difficult as the IELTS speaking test, for example, but it does give you that challenge of listening to something once and then speaking back. So yeah, I think it's pretty good. Now, we're going to go and listen to what this will sound like, and we're going to listen to some of the questions, and I've also prepared some answers for you to listen to so you can get an idea of what sort of things you should be saying. So let's have a listen to some questions and answers now.
I'd like to ask you a few questions about schools. What facilities do a lot of schools have?
Of course, not all schools are the same, but there are some facilities that I'd expect most of them to have. One of these is individual classrooms, probably with a desk and chair for each student. It's also typical for there to be a white or blackboard for the teacher to write on, as well as books and digital resources. Outside of the classroom, schools often have shared facilities like a gym, canteen, and library. By the way, if you want to stay up to date and make sure you don't miss any future DET changes, and also you see our upcoming videos, that means videos coming soon, about things like the new questions about interactive speaking, make sure you like and subscribe because we have new videos with practice, with vocabulary, with more tips, with information coming out all the time. So there was the first example, and you can hear that there's the question, you hear it once, and then you have to respond. Now, of course, mine is like a pretty high-level response. You maybe don't have to speak as much as that, but we don't want it to be just a very simple, like, they have rooms and chair and desk. That's not going to get you a very good score. So try to get at least a few sentences in when you're answering the interactive speaking questions. And as some more example, let's listen, and we're going to continue this conversation.
Thanks for that. How important is it for a school to have all the most modern facilities?
Well, there are obviously some facilities all schools need. It would be hard to deliver a quality education without pens or paper, for example. In terms of modern facilities, though, I'm not sure that they're always really necessary. When I was younger, we didn't have smartboards or tablets, and I was easily able to pass all my exams. For me, other factors matter more, such as how good the teaching is.
That's an interesting point. What factors can affect how much a child enjoys going to school?
I'd say there are various aspects that can make school more or less enjoyable. For instance, I bet students with a large network of friends probably have a better time overall. Another factor that might make a difference is the amount of support available. I mean, I think a child is more likely to enjoy school if the teachers help them to get the most out of their studies and celebrate their achievements when things go well. Now, something interesting about interactive speaking is that the topic of the conversation might change halfway through. So far we've been talking about schools, but have a listen to the next question and you'll notice that our topic of conversation is going to change.
Thank you for talking to me about schools. Now, I'd like to change topics and ask you something about cooking. Tell me why some people might see cooking as a leisure activity.
I guess there are lots of things about cooking which mean that people enjoy doing it for fun. There's something about chopping vegetables or mixing ingredients that lets you forget about daily worries and focus on one task. Of course, cooking can also be very rewarding, especially when what you make turns out well and you have the pleasure of sharing it with family or friends.
I see what you mean. Why do you think some people are better at cooking than others?
It's difficult to say, really. I suppose some people learn to cook as kids, so they feel more at home in the kitchen later on. Creativity probably has a part to play too. If you enjoy using your imagination, you might find it easier to make interesting dishes and combine different flavors. Personally speaking, I don't care about cooking at all, so I imagine that's why nobody likes to eat what I make.
I see. And how important do you think it is for people to learn to cook traditional dishes from their country or region?
Honestly, I really don't think it matters very much. If some people like to stay in touch with their traditional cuisine, that's great for them. But there's no reason that anyone should have to make those sort of dishes. A lot of the food where I'm from is pretty bland and uninspiring, so I definitely wouldn't be in a big hurry to learn about how it's prepared.
Thanks for talking about schools and cooking with me. Have a nice day.
So there we go, there's a little taster of interactive speaking. Now, we don't know for sure yet which of the different areas, the subscores, this is going to be related to. But our prediction here at Last Minute English is that this is going to affect your comprehension and your conversation subscores. Conversation, of course, because this is a conversation. And usually conversation is about speaking and listening, and usually speaking in a shorter way. The other one, production, is for kind of longer answers like read then speak or the speaking sample. And also then comprehension is all about listening, understanding what the other person is talking about. So we think it's going to be comprehension and conversation, but let's wait and see. And one more very important thing, this is like a pretty stressful question. It's going to be quite hard. You really have to focus. But the good news is that it only comes once in the test. So it's not too bad. By the way, if you're preparing for the DET and you want to make sure you pass first time, you get your target score with no stress and not having to pay for the test again and again, make sure you check out our DET complete preparation course. We've got hundreds of students and they're getting all kinds of great scores, 130, 140, sometimes even 150. The link to that course is here under the video. Now, the next big addition to the Duolingo English test, and remember, these changes are coming on the 1st of July. So if you take the test between now and the 1st of July 2025, then you're going to be still doing the old questions like listen then speak and stuff like that. And these new questions like interactive speaking won't appear yet. All right, so remember that, that's important. But the second big addition is related to interactive listening. Now I have a little quiz question for you. Let's see how well you know about the DET. There are 2 parts already to interactive listening. What are those parts called? What do you think? So the first part is listen and respond. And then the second part is summarize the conversation. That's the writing part. But now there's going to be a third part, and actually it will come first, and that's called fill in the blanks. So this is different to, there's another type of question called fill in the blanks where you see a sentence and you fill in the blank. This is a little bit different to that because this is all about practicing your listening, not just practicing your reading and understanding. So this fill in the blanks is the first part of interactive listening, and you'll hear a short summary of what the conversation will be about, and then you have to answer 3 or 4 questions filling in the blanks related to the thing that you've just heard. So let's give this a try. I'm going to play the audio for you, and I want you to listen very carefully, and then we're going to put 3 questions on the screen, and we're going to give you 1 minute to try to answer them.
You are in the university library talking to a classmate you know well. You have both used the university's career service to seek advice lately and are exchanging opinions on your experiences. Because there are only a few weeks until you graduate, you're personally keen to find a well-paid job which will let you use the skills you've learned during the 4 years of your course.
Okay, so pretty different to what you've had to do so far in your DET practice, isn't it? Let's take a look at the answers then. So the first question said, what's the main topic of the conversation? And the part that you were given was, the conversation is about, and then you're going to write your best summary in a few words of what the conversation is about. So we could say, the conversation is about the University Careers Service. All right. Then question 2, what's going to happen soon? So I am about to graduate. That one's just one word. And then finally, how long have you been at university? And you have to be careful when you're listening for that, because it says, like, my course was 4 years. So it's not saying I have been at university for 4 years. It's a little bit of like listening, understanding, and going, the course was 4 years, so I've been at university for 4 years. Like finding information here and bringing it over to here. So we'd say, I've been at university for 4 years. So there we go. Those are the two big new things. We've got interactive speaking, and we've got the new part of interactive listening, and now it's pretty long. It's actually going to be 6.5 minutes in total for interactive listening, okay? But the DET still wants to be quite a short test. It doesn't want to get like IELTS where it's 3 hours and you're falling asleep by the end of it. So the only way to keep the DET nice and slim is to get rid of other questions. And so they've decided to get rid of 2 questions in particular. And those 2 questions are, read aloud, where you see the sentence and you say it, and listen then speak. So let's talk about that for a minute. So read aloud, I think it kind of makes sense. It's sort of a boring question. It might be a little bit easy. So it's not such, I don't think it's such a useful thing. So I think that's quite a good decision to get rid of that one. And I think that the 2 new sets of questions, interactive speaking and the new part of interactive listening, are much more like real English. So I think if you're already pretty good at English, this actually will help you. It might seem scary, but I think it will help you. And then listen then speak is interesting, because that was quite a difficult question. And a lot of people sort of didn't like it because it's a lot of pressure. You're speaking for such a long time. And I think that the reason that they've gotten rid of it is because it's so similar to read then speak. So we have listen then speak. You listen to the question and you say it, give your answer, and read then speak. You read the question, you give your answer. And they were quite close, weren't they? So I think it's logical to get rid of listen then speak and bring in this new interactive speaking, because interactive speaking and read then speak are very different to each other. One of them's like a speech, the other one is much more like a conversation. So it tests you in different ways. But don't worry if you've been preparing a lot for listen then speak, because all of the vocabulary you've learned, all of the sentences, the tricks, the strategies, like your ability to speak, is all still really useful for read then speak and also for the speaking sample, because those are still 2 long speaking answers. Now there's one more rule change that I have to tell you about. So the DET has also removed a time limit for some of the questions. So there were some questions where you had to speak or write for a minimum amount of time. And now DET has removed that time limit. And those questions are: speak about the photo, read then speak, interactive writing, writing sample, and speaking sample. So, for example, in your writing sample, if you decide that you can write a full essay in 20 seconds, you can't. But if you decide that you can try and do, you go like that. If you're the fastest typer and the fastest thinker in the world. This isn't going to happen. You still should write as much as you can and speak as much as you can. But if you do find that you feel like your answer is finished and you're below that minimum time limit, you can stop. You can just press, okay, submit my answer, next question. But I really do recommend that you try to write as much as you can, as long as it's good, it's organized, it's correct, and you try to speak as much as you can and show off your good vocabulary. Okay, so there we go. Those are our big changes. So we've got the additions, interactive speaking, the new question in interactive listening. We've got the deleted questions, listen, then speak, and read aloud, and that rule change about the time as well. And remember that these changes all start from the 1st of July, 2025. So that means if you take the test up to the 30th of June, it's still the old system. And remember, if you want to get a really good score the first time you take the DET and avoid having to pay to take it again and again, then you should really check out our DET Complete Preparation course. It's got everything you need to get a really good score. Hundreds of students have taken it so far. We've got students who have scored 130, 140, sometimes even 150. So, if you're interested in that, make sure you click the link under the video to find out more. If you want to keep studying here on YouTube, I suggest the next video you watch is this video just up here, which is all about great vocabulary, really, really useful phrases and sentences and words that you can use in interactive listening. Summarize the conversation. Okay, so we've focused in on that question. It's quite a difficult question, and it's really good to have lots of vocabulary ready because you don't have much time to do that writing. So check out that video here or here under the video here in the description. And one more thing, I have a question for you. Of all of these changes that are happening in DET, do you think for you that this makes the test more difficult? Or does it make the test less difficult? Does it make it easier? Let me know, more difficult or easier in the comments. I'm Francis from Last Minute English. Thank you very much for watching. Good luck in your DET. I'll see you next time.